Hello, and a very warm welcome to this week's LBT Look Blues Talking. I'm Laurence Nelson. I was guilty last week of not actually introducing who was on the video, which is fine if you're watching on video, but not so much if you are only listening to audio. So joining me tonight, Cameron Ritchie and Brian Martin. We'll be looking back on the league opener up at Forfar. We'll be looking ahead to Edinburgh City coming to the Ecogen Stadium at Stair Park on Saturday. And I've just been reminded that actually on Tuesday night we have the first Challenge Cup home meeting with Alloa. Cameron, thanks for that, because I'll be honest, I shouldn't say this, but such is my enthusiasm for the competition, I'd completely forgotten when it was happening. I knew it was soon. We'll also, as I said, we'll look ahead to Edinburgh City as well, which is up and coming. Before that, Brian, you were at Forfar on Saturday. We weren't in commentary duty, which I guess for those round about us meant that they were able to listen to us moaning and cursing under our breath all afternoon on Saturday. How was it for you, Mr. Martin?
Well, Lawrence, got to say, very disappointing, especially first half was very disappointing. I don't think we laid a glove on Forfar to be, uh, it was terrible. First half, second half we improved a wee bit after we made a couple of changes, and I think we didn't 10 men, but it shouldn't really be a surprise, Lawrence, because I think we've won twice here in 20 league games, and I was just looking at the stats. We've had 8 clean sheets. So we've no scored 8 times. So it's a graveyard for Stranraer, that part. But on saying that, I mean, it was really poor again on Saturday up there.
Brian, I'm glad you put that in context, because it's kind of felt to me this week like using it as an excuse for saying it's Forfar. We always lose it Forfar, because what it did feel, the league opener, all that enthusiasm of the League Cup, it just felt really, really flat on Saturday.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I was looking forward to the game on Saturday. I was going up the road and said, I'm quite looking forward to this. I think we'll give Forfar a game here. I knew the defence would be okay. But, I'm not making excuses, but, Jordan Stewart maybe crying off, after the warm up might upset the plans a wee bit. I don't know whether the team, they would work in the shape all week, and then Jordan goes out of the team. I know Ronan Hughes is he's a capable player, and he came into the team, but I don't know whether maybe just a wee bit, put off by that. But so on saying that, we hardly put two passes together in the first half. It was really disappointing. You know, but I did say actually after about half an hour, I think we are growing into this game. I think we're getting a wee bit better, and then they hit us with the goal, which of course separated the teams at full time.
Brian, the one thing that struck me was it didn't feel to me as if particularly so and so had an off game on Saturday. It seemed to be the whole team, to be honest.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Lawrence, when we're standing, in the enclosure. It was so many misplaced passes. You'd think that they'd played together for what, four League Cup games. They should maybe get to know each other. But it looked at so, I mean, misplaced passes, in that first half were just all at sea. I don't know what it was. As I say, I mean, the defence looked tight enough until they got the goal, but it just seemed off, and the players didn't seem to much confidence in that first half. I said it did improve second half, I think, a wee bit.
Interesting to hear Tiff saying at the end that we played better when we're down to 10 men, but he said it was easier to play better when you're down to 10 men. I kind of get what he's saying in some ways, but actually, you've still got to actually get stuck in and put the home team under threat. And to be fair, it was Forfar who were wasting time long before the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did play better, and I agree with Tiff. It just take the pressure off a wee bit because you don't you're not supposed to win with 10 men, so the players
Yeah.
maybe felt a wee bit more relaxed. But I think it changed when he brought on the two subs, the boys up front. I think it did. They gave them a lot more to think about. James Dolan, who gave us a bit of width and gave us a bit of creativity. I mean, it's okay being good, hard to beat, but you need to create. And I was looking at the Edinburgh City game. We never created a chance to about 80 minutes. And
Yeah.
again on Saturday, we never created a chance until well into the second half. So we're fine defensive, but we've got to try and get a wee bit creative going forward. And I think James Dolan brought that when he came on. He done the same at Edinburgh. And I think we've probably got to try and start him and gives a bit of creative play early on in the games instead of waiting. But I know he's injured, so I mean I'm not saying he should have played him for the start, but I think if he's fit this weekend, we'll wait and see. We'll talk about that later on. I think we should probably start. We'll talk about it later on.
Yeah, yeah. Apologies, Cameron. I will come to you in a minute or two. Just want to put a few things to bed first from Station Park. Very disappointing day all round. Started for me when McLaren's the Bakers was closed for holidays. What's the point in going to Forfar, given our bloody awful record up there? Excuse my language. If you can't even get a Bridie, Brian, we've got to talk about Evan Dunn's sending off. Was it pretty clear cut for you?
Yeah, I've got to say, I thought McLean had the best game I've ever seen him playing against Stranraer. I read somewhere where he was ill last season with lung problems or something. But I mean, he gave Evan. Let's face it, he gave him a toasting on that on his left on Evan's right hand side, the hand side of the park. McLean coming in, he gave him and I mean, Dunn. We said it when we were near the action in the second half after the first booking. He's going to get another booking with this boy because he just couldn't handle him. And Tiff, to be fair to Tiff, he did say he was going to replace him,
Yeah,
but it just came too late. But I mean, I thought Evan was pretty nervous on Saturday. I mean, we were used to it in the friendlies and maybe even the League Cup games. He carried the ball out of defence and he was calm and composed. But he actually gave away the ball for the free kick that led to the goal. He just
yeah.
kicked it up the park and it went to McLean. There was no composure with him. I think maybe nerves in his first SPFL game. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It was quite a big game for him. But McLean did give him a bit of run around, I've got to say.
And if we can give Evan any guidance on that, yeah, it's nerve-wracking. It's your first SPFL game, but actually you'd already played against better players and come
Hmm.
out looking good, in the League Cup group when
Yeah,
we played Thistle, we played Ross County, we played Queen of the South. Dare I say Edinburgh City, every bit as good as, if not better than Forfar. So nothing to worry about, sir. Man, just go back on the
yeah,
bike and get on with it again. We did make the changes. Tiff, I think, was ready to replace Evan Dunn, but unfortunately, the second yellow came just before he could do that. And I have to say, Cup McKnight coming on, BJ Call come on, as you said, Dolan come on, Saluturi come on. What a difference it made. I know the manager said we were 10 against 11. We were almost trying to do damage limitation, but we actually did give Forfar a few things to worry about. And Danny McManus, who had, again, was that one of a number of players who I didn't think had a particularly good game on Saturday. He wasn't that far away with one of his shots.
yeah. He almost equalised, didn't he, Lawrence?
Aye,
A couple of inches lower because McCallum was well beat. He was just watching the ball over his head. He was well beat, and it was just inches away for the net. But I thought Touré made a difference as well. His
aye,
pace up top. I mean, Stuart Morrison had a great tackle on him in the box. I mean, he had to get it absolutely spot on. That
yeah,
was a penalty to us. Touré's pace just, and he beat the man well. I mean, it wasn't as though it was just a ball played up. He beat the man. His pace got him up towards the 18-yard box. And he was causing him all sorts of problems when he came on. Maybe another player that Tiff will maybe look at this weekend and say, well, he's earned his place for Saturday. Again, we'll look at it, but I thought he was really good. I would like to see him maybe get a goal, and that'll maybe give him a bit of confidence.
Cameron, we've been talking for a few weeks now about the whole problem of getting a goal scorer, a proven goal scorer in. We've got goal scorers, but they'll just know the sort of 15 a season variety. And I guess from having watched the last few games, it strikes me that both Ryan Edgar and Salou Touré are pretty effective at what they do. And it's quite interesting because it's almost slightly different. So you've got Ryan, who started the last couple of games, come on, and particularly the Queen of the South game, let them know he was there right from minute one and got stuck in about them, was rugged, chased everything. And then when he'd tired their defence out after sort of 50 minutes, an hour, we brought Salo on, who's got a bit of pace. So in some respects, to me, we've got it right there. Maybe just what we need is alongside them an experienced striker.
Yeah, I don't think the work rate of Sal or Ryan can be questioned in terms of their endeavours and efforts. But obviously, if you are playing as not necessarily a lone striker, but certainly a lone kind of central player, you need the other players to get up alongside you to benefit from your hard work, your harrying, etc. it's the age-old thing that if there's a long ball up the park and the striker wins it to flick it on, you need somebody pushing beyond them to get it. Otherwise, he's just flicking it onto himself. He's then got to chase the second ball, etc., and it becomes that much more difficult. Obviously, as you said, every club's looking for that striker, that person that's going to hit comfortably double figures. And because of that, the strikers are in that fortunate position where they can hold out and say, I want this, I want that, knowing that they're in short supply, I guess.
Yeah, and might not even want to travel to play for a club like Stranraer if they think they can get a gig closer to home that maybe pays as well or pays a bit more or even pays less, but it's actually less hassle for them, to be honest. Brian, let's address...
I think if you stay in the central belt, for example, just using Stirling as an example, obviously you could be home in, say, 20, 30 minutes after the game, whereas Stair Park, you're talking maybe a couple hours.
Yeah, yeah. Brian, one of the things that I've heard people talking about, you've heard people talking about, is this playing two up front. You know, at the moment that would mean both Sal and Ryan. Is there a case for it, or is it really asking a lot, particularly away from home?
I suppose he could play it, Laurence, but it's just a system I think he's playing. I think on Saturday it was a 4-3-3 with Jordan supposed to sitting in front of the back four, and it can become a 4-5-1. And I think it was always going to be one up top on Saturday. You know, and I know Marcia was just sitting off the striker, but I think it was always going to be that because it was be that kind of game. You know, and you know they were well up for it on Saturday. And I think playing two up top might have played into their hands even more. I was quite happy with it with the formation. Just the players didn't really, play to it as well as what they could have on Saturday.
Brian, again, this is going to sound a bit like sour grapes, and we've had enough problems last season commenting on other teams, but actually, Forfar to me looked as if they'd strengthened a bit from last season, but they weren't that great.
No, I mean, you're right, Laurence. I mean, we were a set piece away from a point. I mean, it's as simple as that. The defence done their job, as I say. Okay, they had a couple of sniffs. You'd expect that for a home team. I mean, they're the attacking team. They've got the crowd behind them. Are up for the game. First game of the season, blah, blah. But as I say, and I mean, Tiff would be absolutely furious with the set piece goal. Absolutely furious. I mean, Morrison, there's one player you watch for Forfar. Used to be Monroe and Morrison. Now it's Morrison. A set piece. He is the one player who right enough, I'll say Dolczynski can come up as well, but Morrison has been doing it for years in the SPFL, and I'm afraid, I think, I blame Lewis. I thought it was Lewis Hunter, but I think it was Scott Roth that lost him. He get 2 or 3 yards, you can see it in the replay, he get 2 or 3 yards on him. But again, Scott's just in this league for the first season, he'll learn. Morrison's a well-established player, and he's a wily old campaigner. He's only 26, I think, but he knows, what to do at these situations. And he stole a couple of yards off Rough, and that was enough for him to put it in the goal. But I think Tiff would be absolutely furious because I'm quite sure they talked about it, Thursday or Saturday, whatever. He'd be absolutely furious.
Cameron, I guess Scott was one I noticed on Saturday night. There's a guy on Twitter or an account on Twitter which tweets people are making their SPFL debuts, and 3 of the Stranraer team were doing their first ever league match. But actually, what I found was quite interesting was there was a hell of a lot on Saturday from League Two, Edinburgh City as well, who we're going to come back to shortly. I'm guessing, come back to what Brian said there, though, is a set piece away from a point, and actually a point of Forfar, I'm thinking everybody would have thought on day one of the season, perfectly admirable result even, whereas a 1-0 defeat it's that fine margin. Again, the 1-0 defeat just feels a flat start.
I think that's it. I know you hear managers saying they don't get too carried away with the highs, they don't get too carried away with the lows. As fans, I think we're the complete opposite. That we beat Queen of the South and everybody's driving up the road with the scarves flying out the car windows, etc., and celebrating all week. And then we go up to Forfar, and not only do we obviously not get a result, but to serve up such a flat and disappointing performance, I think that's almost on a par with not getting any points, that you didn't really see it coming. We'd been decent to good during the League Cup, and then again, it gets hammered home how the league's the bread and butter, it's the most important thing, etc. And then unfortunately, we didn't turn up. And equally, as I'm saying about the highs and lows and not getting carried away, 35 more games.
Yeah.
There's more than enough time to kind of still end the season with a smile on our face, but certainly at the moment it does feel kind of, oh, Saturday, that really has deflated everyone.
Yeah, it was just odd, Brian, because we've all agreed that the squad looks much stronger, more robust than last season. And it was just hard to put our finger on what didn't happen or what was happening on Saturday.
I think it's tough saying in the interview. We just didn't look at ourselves, you know. I mean, as you say, second half with 10 men, we seem to come on to the game a wee bit. But you know, as we repeated, Laurence, I'll repeat, we couldn't put two passes together in the first half. You know, and we're playing to Forfar's men. You know, I mean, they were getting the ball off us, and they looked more up for it in the first half. You know,
Yeah.
I've got to say they were seem to be winning every second ball. You know, and as I said earlier on. It's their first game at home. They had the crowd behind them. You know, it's probably making excuses now. But as I said last week, it was quite a tough game. But I think George said every game would be tough away from home in this league, and I think it proved that.
Yeah, we were talking last week, Cameron, that it wasn't an easy place to start. And I was making the point to George, where would we fancy instead? Because there's nobody in League Two that I think, there's absolutely nobody that I think would be an easy place to start. And I think every other club will be the same. But I mean, looking back on Saturday, Annan, who a few people are tipping to be bottom, won a bit of a ding-dong battle 3-2 at home to Elgin. The Barton beat Clyde 2-1. Edinburgh City lost 2-1 at home to Stirling. Their one was a 90+2 penalty. And I guess the one that raised the most eyebrows, East Kilbride 1, Spartans 3, Cameron.
Yeah, I think I'd said in my predictions that I've said I fancy East Kilbride to win the league, and I'm not going to change that after one game. But equally, I fancy there'll be occasions where the style that they look to play will probably kind of come back to bite them a little bit. And again, watching the highlights from there, Mark Stow's second goal, very early contender for goal of the season.
Yeah.
But then equally, the goal would be Spartan's second goal, defensive howler. And again, it's those things that are a bit like the set pieces that you can't legislate for that. You can practice all you want, but then if something happens on the day like that, there's no much you can do. We're saying about difficult starts. I imagine other than East Kilbride at Spartans, couldn't have asked for a much more difficult start to life in the SPFL for them. Obviously, they would want to get off to a flyer. They got the home advantage that, again, every manager will be wanting. But in terms of the actual opposition, I fancy Spartans are going to be up there coming the end of the season.
Yeah, Brian will come back, obviously, to East Kilbride. I think next week, I think we've got them fairly shortly.
Yeah.
We're coming up against them. But I think what that underlines is that, you know, much as they spend a lot of money, much as they bring in loads of players, you know, we've seen them only a year ago. They're not unbeatable, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely, Laurence. I mean, defensive wise, I think they're very suspect. I did say that 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think that going forward, they look to be fine. Although I did see Joe Baldy and Cammy Elliott didn't play on Saturday. Whether they're injured, I don't know. But they weren't playing, so that's two, you know, I mean, who've been starters. So they brought in the boy Dobie, who came from Celtic. He was playing up front instead of Cammy Elliott. So, but you know, defensive wise, as Cammy says, the second goal was a comedy of errors. I don't know what the keeper was doing, but it landed right. I think it was Mark Stow, was it Cammy Russell?
Yeah.
Was it Mark Stow? Yeah,
it was Mark Stow.
Yeah, it landed at his feet, and it was a comedy of errors. But I mean, they're not going to play their tippy-tappy football all the time in League Two. They're going to get found out. At some grounds, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, and Cameron, just the one element I picked out was Annan purely because so many people, including Mr. Telfer and Mr. McGuigan, were tipping them to be bottom. It's not a bad start beating Elgin City.
Yeah, a strange game whereby Annan go 2-1 up with a minute to go. Elgin then equalise in the 92nd minute. And then Annan go and get the winner. And it must have been, again, as I said, that managers not getting too carried away with wins and losses, etc. But I think I would have been absolutely fuming if my team was level 2-2 in the 92nd minute, having just pulled level, and then to leave with nothing. Again, the age-old football cliche of if you can't win it, don't lose it. And I would do. I wouldn't have been happy at all about that. But fair play to Annan. And as you say, plenty of folk, including myself, kind of tipping them to struggle this year. If they can kind of get into that mentality of kind of us against the world sort of thing, then it could be the best thing that happens for them in that respect.
Well, Scottish football continues in its own inimitable, entertaining fashion. And, basically, we find ourselves, when we're recording tonight, 15 points off the bottom. The reason for that being that Edinburgh City have been handed a 15-point deduction. The Barton were already started on -5. They did themselves no harm at the weekend by beating Clyde, so they're now on -2. Edinburgh City, the story is that it seems to have been a fairly small debt. We are going on what we've read online, so apologies if it's not absolutely accurate. It's hearsay. It was a £5,000 debt, and from what I can see, the club hadn't paid it. Whoever was owed the money had then gone to officialdom and served them notice about it, and it still wasn't paid. So a provisional administrator, a provisional liquidator was appointed. And the minute that happens, the SPFL rules say that there's going to be sanctions, basically, which seems to be at the moment automatically the 15 points. Edinburgh City are saying they will appeal it. Just reading between the lines, again online, it's going to have to be something pretty special, Cameron, to win an appeal, because I think the rules seem to suggest that to win an appeal, you're going to have to come up with something that the league knew about and ignored, or that the league have got the rules wrong, and it just doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, it's difficult. I suppose there's kind of two sides to it, that from a supporter's point of view, every sympathy in the world for Edinburgh City fans. Obviously, you wouldn't want that happening to your own club. Something totally out with, not only out with your control, but out with kind of the footballers' control as well. So you're being punished for being kind of, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent on the pitch, where in theory is where it matters. Equally, I'm kind of, rules are rules when it comes to it. And if you start kind of saying, oh, it's this or it's that, then if another club in a kind of vaguely similar situation, are they going to say, but look, you did this for them? And it's difficult, and it's hard, and as I say, it's horrible for the supporters. If there's one wee bit of kind of silver lining, I guess, is the fact that it's happened one game into the season. So you've got plenty of time to hopefully try to turn it around. I think the thing that my brain struggles with is, part of me kind of goes, it's only 15 points. And while I say only, it is still obviously a kind of sizable chunk to make up. It's the fact that obviously all the teams above you, they don't just stay on the same number of points while you chip into it. Yeah. So obviously, again, they could pick up a win this weekend. Well, hopefully not.
Next weekend.
Yeah, but equally, it could make absolutely no difference in terms of the gap, because the team above them could win. So you might be like, right, that's us one. You look at the league table, we're still 15 adrift. That's terrible. It's that must be difficult for the players and the coaching staff, that you can only concentrate on what you do, but equally you look at the league table and you realise that you've put in a brilliant performance, you've got a win away to Elgin or whatever. You look at the league table, we're still 15 points behind.
Yeah, it's you say, in my mind, I'm separating it out into two very, very different attitudes. And one is for the fans of Edinburgh City and for the manager and players. That's what they're doing. If you're the manager, you must be tearing your hair out that you put, the guy is scrimped to put together quite a small, tight squad this season. And he's still been talking confidently that he's pretty happy with the guys he's brought in. Really small squad. But, this is basically just getting the feet taken from you on day one. On the other hand, I've got my brother bending my ear in the car every week about football club finances. And actually, if there are things going on, it does feel to me as if the SPFL are at last starting to take action on things that are going wrong. Some of them don't sound, like this one doesn't sound all that monumental. It doesn't sound like a huge thing, although I do think if the club allegedly knew for 3 weeks that there was this debt of 5,000 to pay, I think they should be moving heaven and earth to make sure that was getting paid. But there is a wee bit of me, as you kind of alluded to, Cameron, if things ain't right and the rules are there to deal with them, actually, you can't just sort of I'm quite sorry for them. Let's let that one go. And then the next club that comes along, well, you let it go for them. We couldn't be bothered paying something, and trying to make it assimilate it with what's going on at Edinburgh City. So it's interesting. So they will appeal, but same as going back to the Hamilton Accies one at the time. Again, I was being told, well, appeal all you like, but the appeal isn't just we think it's harsh. The appeal is actually you missed something or you've not gone with the rules. And I think, particularly given what's going on with other clubs recently, I think the SPFL, you've got to think, have looked at the rules before they did this and didn't just sort of jump in and think, let's hit some club randomly. Brian, from the fans' point of view and the manager's point of view, it's absolutely devastating at the start of the season.
Oh, it must be Laurence. I mean, I was just thinking. I think the bottom club in League Two the last 2 or 3 seasons. Well, I think last season was either 35 or 36 points. So that means Edinburgh have got to get. If it this happen that way, they've got to get 51 points, with basically a bunch of kids on the bench. I don't think they're going to sign many players. I don't think the money's there to sign players. If they get somebody injured, I think it's a huge task for them. I honestly do. But I feel sorry for the fans. They've been through the mire the last 2 or 3
Absolutely.
seasons. It's a shame, but oh well, rules, I suppose. And I was just saying that our good housekeeping seems to be paying off because I know you're never safe, but behind the scenes, I've told the story before many a time. What Sean Niven said to me that. After the Rangers game, we could have the right go at League. Well, we're winning. Was it League One, League Two, whatever we're in?
To that
Could have,
season, yeah.
he says no. He says we're going to keep most of it because you never know when you're going to hit a bad patch. And he was spot on.
It's even a tricky balance to play as a fan of another club, Cameron, because as a Stranraer fan, I don't want to come across holier than thou, but because of the nature of our club being genuinely a club rather than a company, we can't run up massive debts, which tends to mean that I'm hoping that we are run on a more even keel than some other clubs. So then that makes you think, well, if actually we are having to do that, it's a really big disadvantage to us if other clubs can just run up debts and nobody bothers paying any attention to what they do.
The thing is that obviously it wasn't that long ago that Stranraer were proper struggling financially, and you see the consequences that has, and yeah, they're by the grace of God, I guess. When it comes to being a supporter, obviously there's only kind of so much you can impact on the kind of the workings of the club. Your main focus is what happens Saturday from 3 p.m. till 4:45 sort of thing. You go out, you cheer your team and everything else. You buy the merchandise, you do whatever you can to support your club. But it's very difficult as a supporter to handle when something that as I say is happened that's clearly going to hamper Edinburgh City. That's not a footballing thing, not something that's happening, as I say, a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, as I say, I feel for the fans. I feel for Mr. McIndoe. I feel for the players, insofar as you can feel for another team who are in the same league issue. Apropos of nothing, I had a wee football night out in the east of Scotland again last night. Had 2 or 3 East of Scotland qualifying cup ties to choose from, and in the end I kind of ran out of time to go to anywhere further afield, so I went to Pennycook, Vale of Leithen, and actually went there, Cameron, you know a bit about the East setup. I went there fully in the knowledge that Pennycook, Premier Division, Vale of Leithen, bottom tier, this could easily be 7 or 8-0. Turned out to be a really entertaining night. Pennycook huffed and puffed, went 1-0 up in the stroke of half time. Vale then came out, equalised. Pennycook took the lead again. Vale equalised again, and actually it shows you, in some respects, managers are so focused on setting a team up. The management of Vale Leithen will then consult with the linesman. What happens if it's a draw? Is it extra time or penalties? And I think the linesman was checking as well, but it was going to go to penalties when in the 88th minute, Pennycook fired in a corner that blew into the net. So it felt a bit harsh in Vale Leithen. It was probably the right result in a way, but it was actually quite an entertaining Tuesday night out. And what I felt actually was there seemed to be more football in that game between an East Premier side and an East Division 3 side than there was at last week's Lowland League match between Trinent and Berwick when I went to. It was a bit brutal, to be honest. So it's just, you can go to any game and it's, Saturday was expecting us to play well and we were flat, and then you just don't know what's going to happen. Staying on the subject then of Edinburgh City, they're obviously coming to the Ecogen Stadium, Stair Park, on Saturday. Brian, you and Cameron both saw them at Meadowbank only 2 or 3 weeks ago. I heard you talking about that then, but put that into a bit of context in terms of what we can expect, what should we be trying to do this Saturday.
Well, I think we all know what Matt and Do's try to do. Edinburgh City, once they play a nice football, play through you, which I'm quite sure they'll try again on Saturday. I think they've quite a lot of injuries right enough. If last Saturday's thing to go by, I think the boy for Hibs is still out injured. Lawson wasn't playing, so they've got a host of injuries. So I don't know what it'll be like this Saturday. The boy Daramola was up front, but he was very disappointing seemingly and get took off. I did watch the replay. I just hope the defence is as bad this Saturday as what they were last Saturday. They gave Big McLean 2 goals, and he could have had a hat trick to hit the post, but they looked very, very poor on the replay. They got a last minute penalty, which looked very suspect by the referee, but I think maybe this Saturday we could maybe start on the front foot, being at home, and then I kind of see most of the players being back. It'd be a miraculous recovery if they're all back. So I think we maybe got to try and start on in the front foot and try and take the game to them.
Well, we do know Cameron Evan Dunn will be out after his red card, so that will give Chris Aiken a bit of food for thought. He basically had to rush Ronan Hughes on Saturday to start the game. He had named the team basically which had beaten Queen of the South, and then hurriedly had to replace Jordan Stewart. And then of course had to make wholesale changes in the second half. Do you think Saturday's game will be the both logical reason and heartfelt reason to we change it now, but the Queen of the South game's long gone. We need to start again and look at the strong team for this Saturday effectively?
I think, as you say, obviously, presumably, unless the rules have changed massively, but presumably Evan Dunn will be unavailable, so there'll certainly be the one change. I don't think, from what I've heard, that Jordan Stewart's going to be back. So there's again, I know it's not a change in the sense that obviously he didn't actually play on Saturday, but there's another. So yeah, it'll be interesting because, as I say, I've said throughout that managers they say about not getting carried away with wins or losses, and well, for one thing, we don't have the squad size to kind of rip it up and make wholesale changes. But equally, as you say, are we going to turn things about? Are there going to be changes? Will we go two up top, being at home, etc.? It's a difficult one, and I guess that's why the management team, that's what they're there to do. They make the tough decisions in terms of the personnel, the shape, and everything else.
And Cameron, it's a very unforgiving game. So we lost 1-0 at Forfar. It was a tough game. Forfar probably deserved the win. First game of the season. They were at home. We've got a terrible record at Forfar. You really can't afford to lose the first 2 games.
Yeah, it's a strange one that in isolation, losing 2 games obviously isn't good. But equally, you lose 2 games at the start of the season. The League Cup, any success that you've had in it seems a million miles away back in the past. All the focus comes on, they've not got any points on the board yet, etc. And that just ramps up the pressure for as long as it goes. And we've seen that in various forms. That obviously wasn't that long ago that didn't matter where we went for an away game, we were coming home not with 3 points. And the longer that goes on, and again, I know managers will say, no, that doesn't play on the mind, etc. But you become aware of stats like that. You become aware of kind of quirks of runs like that where you've not picked up points. And obviously nobody wants to be picking up the paper on a Sunday morning, looking at the league table and, there's us looking, well, I was going to say looking up at everyone, obviously, in the way that the points deductions have come about. We won't be looking up at everyone. But yeah, you want to get those points on the board as soon as possible. Momentum is that massive thing. And if we can do that, then all of a sudden the next league game, you're looking forward to it and you're going in full of confidence.
Brian, you were saying on Saturday, I think I'm right, I picked you up saying you thought BJ Call would be back this week. He missed out because he was away getting married. Quite an important day for him. And congratulations. I can't remember who actually said that to BJ last week. You said you reckon to be back this week. The other thing I would point out is I thought Curtin McKnight, Tiff said he was about to bring him on in the middle. He actually had to bring him on in place of Evan Dunn. I thought Curtin McKnight did really, really well when he came on Saturday.
He seemed to play McLean a lot better than what Evan Dunn
Yeah,
did. So I take it. I mean, if Sean Docherty's no fit, it's obviously Knight will get into the right back position. I would have thought anyway. I mean, Finn Ecclestone didn't look wrong on Saturday. All the trouble was coming down the left hand side.
yeah.
So it's. But I think he'll play. I think he'll play BJ in that left back position. That he'll get his back four. Well, obviously Dunn's not there. I think he'd love Docherty back, but going with what we're told, might not yet be ready on Saturday. We don't know right enough, and I don't think he'll play the two up top. But I honestly don't. I think he'll. Yeah, I think I would love to see him playing Toure for the start and then bring Ryan on later on. Because it's a demanding role, and I think he'll play the 4-3-3 again against a team who as I say, like to play football against you and keep it kind of close early doors. But as I say, I think we've got to go for the juggler at times on Saturday because I think they'll be still 2 or 3 short, and they'll be the team everybody was touting last season to be up there among the front runners. Well, over the 15 points will keep them back for a while, but I think there'll be changes, and I think Dolan might play as well in the left hand side to give a bit of width and a bit of creative play going forward.
Could be important because one of the things I heard, I think it was the Terrace podcast, they were looking at Edinburgh City and they were saying they were quite surprised when they looked at how little width Edinburgh City had, and it's not something I'd noticed last season.
No, I mean Ennis Lawson, is he playing at the left hand side? I mean, in Stokes, he can play either wing.
Yeah.
He's right or left. So he's a tricky wee player as well. Got to watch him. But I mean, we're at home. We should be dictating the play and in terms. And I fully expect us to do well on Saturday. I honestly do, and we'll be looking up the table again.
Good, 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 good. Cameron, one thing that struck me there, it's like negatives and positives. We were all being quite happy with the changes to the squad, and then the minute we get to the league, well, without the likes of Jordan Stewart, Sean Docherty, so it's a thankless task. Same for McIndoe at Edinburgh. It's a thankless task. You spend all summer preparing a squad, and then immediately you've got players missing. We've still got Darren Lang out, Robbie Foster out as well. So actually, there's quite a few players missing.
Yeah, it's a difficult one that obviously if you run a bigger squad and say kind of you've got somebody for each position sort of thing, sod's law will be that you don't have any injuries, and then you'll have players sitting on the bench or even in the stand who are unhappy about the lack of game time. Equally, if you go the other way and you have a kind of relatively small squad, as you say, any injuries, suspensions, particularly if they're long-term injuries, I think you notice that kind of straight away that if somebody's out long-term, it's almost like not having a member of the squad in that respect, that they're not going to be available for however long. You very quickly, you see your bench dwindle, and when you do, and obviously Chris has said this repeatedly, it's not an 11-man game anymore, and we've been able to bring on 5 subs. You're going to need folk that are going to change the game. And if you're looking at your bench and kind of, with all due respect to whoever's there, you think, are they somebody that can change a game rather than are they somebody that can kind of slot in like for like? If somebody's done their shift, you want to bring on fresh legs. But there will be times where you need somebody on to change the game, and if you've got a kind of limited bench, that's when it can be a problem.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Cameron. More and more nowadays, it used to be you had a couple of subs in the days of 2 subs, and literally they would only get on if somebody was injured. Now more and more, it's not just injuries, it's actually, we need somebody to change things in the middle of the park, or we need somebody to change things at right back. It's become more and more that you're looking at the bench and thinking, when you've got a bench with 7, 8, 9 people on it, you're actually looking at it now thinking, who is likely to come on? They all can come on, but you're looking at it thinking, who is likely to come on? And actually, to be fair, our bench on Saturday, any one of them at any point, I would have been happy to bring on. And that's probably something, Cameron, that's very different from maybe a couple of years ago.
I think so. I think there have been times where it's been a kind of relatively settled 11, I guess. And then when there needs to be a change, I don't want to say it hampers the side. That's probably a little bit unfair. But now, as you say, with being able to make 5 subs, it's not even so much, or it's partially about the fact that you might want to change the game, but obviously you might be responding to what the opposition are doing as well. Yeah. So it could be that if somebody's got a particular attribute and you go, right, that's going to pose us challenges, you turn to your bench, that person's going to kind of combat that. And obviously in the days where it was, say, kind of 3 folk on the bench and you might have a sub keeper there as well, you're just by default, you're limited in what you can do. There's only so many changes that you can make, and there's only so many positions that those players are going to be able to cover.
And I guess you could see that on Saturday. I'm looking at Saturday's team sheet. We made forced changes in the middle of the second half, and immediately Forfar made changes, and I'm guessing that was because they saw what we were doing, and they either wanted fresh legs or they wanted somebody to combat who we were bringing on, and changing the game. Brian, you were saying earlier on, I don't know if you've still got a note of it there, but we've got a new referee at Stair Park this Saturday.
I think it's Wilkie. Is it Jamie Wilkie?
Is it?
Yeah, he was refereeing Lower League last season. This is his first ever SPFL game, so the best of luck to him.
Yeah, I can see you put that in the chat that we've got earlier on. So a new face. One other thing, George is filming this tonight, but he's not with us. But he asked us to mention, I think it's in the nature of almost an apology, in that we said last week kits would be for sale online. They're not. I do know that the training tops for sale. I noticed that being advertised. I think the committee are basically still chasing up the kits. I think the third kit is due to be unveiled shortly. And as I said last week, the only clue that Mr. Dugan would give us was that it wasn't lilac and it wasn't blue, which was he wasn't really being that helpful, to be honest. The Dell boy at the stall at Stair Park, doubling as our chairman, Ian Dugan. Cameron, you also helpfully pointed out that we have got League One Alloa at Stair Park on Tuesday night. Now, this cup format is a bit of a strange one in that we've got 6 games, 5 of which are at home for us because you can't play the 3 B teams away from home. So the league teams, we've got Alloa and Queen of the South at home, and we've got away at Kelty Hearts on a Saturday. And I think I am right in saying that so all the championship teams are waiting, and it's kind of like, unless you're in the bottom 8, you're going through. And bottom 8, that is out of about 32 teams or something, 30 teams. So yeah. It's a funny one. In the it's going to be a bit of a tough one if you actually end up getting knocked out, and we shouldn't with all these home games. But it seems to be a very convoluted way of getting through in the next round, where if you get through, a seeding comes in and we would immediately get a team from the top of the championship. So what do you make of the tournament, Cameron?
It's a strange one because, again, you hear managers say about players there being too much football, basically. And then we've gone from all of the cup competitions basically being kind of straight knockout from day one to then having groups. But basically, I know this one isn't a group, it's a kind of ladder format.
Champions League type.
Yeah, but it just introduces more games, which seems kind of counterproductive for what people have been saying. In terms of myself as a fan, I might not make the games, but I'll certainly be keeping an eye out on social media, on websites to see how the games are going. If Stranraer were playing every day of the week, I'd still be keeping an eye out like that. So the more football, the better in that respect. But I guess for us, it maybe gives an opportunity for somebody like James Dolan to get minutes in their legs, somebody that's perhaps not played, whether it's through selection or whether it's been injury, get minutes in their legs to kind of get back up to speed.
And maybe you can then try things like Edgar and Toure together, even if not for the whole game, to see, does it work? How would it work? Alloa, Brian, League One, 1-2-1 at Steny on Saturday. I noticed Curtis Roberts was one of the scorers, so there'll be a bit of experience in their lineup. I'm trying to quickly go through and see if there's any names that I know. Liam McFarlane is on goals for them on loan. We saw him with East Fife last season. Who else did they have? Cameron O'Donnell. Shout if any of these names are familiar. Stephen Buchanan was a scorer as well. Stefan Skugel, he's been doing the rounds. Cameron, you'll remember him from Livingston, probably way back in the day. He's still playing. Curtis Roberts, as I say, very experienced. So It'll not be an easy game on Tuesday night, Brian, is what I'm saying.
It's going to be really strange, Lawrence. I mean, how serious are ever going to take it? They'll be wanting to go up into the championship. You
Yeah.
know, they'll want to win League One. So are they going to treat this cup as serious? You know, as what they should have. I mean, usually this competition is won by a championship club. I
Yeah.
think it's a long time since a League One or a League Two club has won it. So I mean, you know, it takes it, as you say, if the seeds come in, you know, you're getting placed against a league, a championship side who might take it serious. I don't know, but
We
I
could get
think,
Ross County again, basically, Brian.
yeah, I mean, it's a strange one to me, but you know, I think the first thing is we've got to try and get through into the knockout stage and see what it takes, because I think
Yes.
it'll make you money, won't it? You know, I think,
The one thing that this competition does seem to have this year is they've upped the money again, and
yeah,
you know, there's a bit of me. I don't particularly like the B team's involvement. I'm no interest in seeing us playing against a reserve side. I know different people have different views on that, and I would imagine Rangers B at Stair Park might bring in a couple of hundred people from the town who would struggle to find Stair Park normally, and will quite happily take their 10, 15 quid admission fee off them for that. But aye, there is money to be made in it, Brian.
yeah, I think that's, I mean, the way we'll look at it. You know, plus it might give, Tommy was saying about James Dolan, etc. You might give a couple of reserve players a chance. Because, I mean, we've only got, you know, what a pool down with injuries now is down to about 17. So, I mean, you kind of keep getting the players to play, you
Yeah,
know, Monday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday. It's impossible. You know,
yeah.
the first six weeks of the season or whenever it is. You know, so he might give the pool, you know, the pool of players a chance to play in the competition. But as I say, it depends how serious Alloa take it. They might send in a bunch of kids for it. I don't know.
Probably depends with all clubs these days, Cameron, how many signed players they've actually got. Because
Mm,
you know, we're talking about the number of new appearances in League Two on Saturday. I don't imagine League One is vastly different in terms of the money clubs are throwing about. You know, I can't imagine Alloa are sitting there with a squad of 30 odd.
No, definitely not. I imagine just by default, based on that, that it'll be reasonably strong teams. Obviously, there's going to be folk that will be swapped out, etc. And as we said, managers will be wanting to see different players playing in different positions, etc. But I imagine it'll be kind of a relatively strong squad, and whether that's a case of the folk that started in the league game start the game with a view of you try and put it to bed by the hour mark and then you can make changes, or whether it's the other way around that you've got the established stars on the bench that if you need to, you bring them on. If not, brilliant, they get a total rest.
And I don't know if either of you can put me right in this. When's the signing deadline? When does the window close for us?
September, early September, isn't it?
September. Where I was going with this, I was wondering if you could use it to bring in if there are any trialists about. But to be honest, we play Alloa on the 12th of August. We play Rangers B on the 26th of August. After that, you're into September. So there's probably no point in bringing in trialists, even if there are free agents or players available, because if you can't sign them beyond that point, then what's the point? It's a bit of a strange one. Just the whole, as you said in the build up there, Cameron, all these extra games for clubs that we're already being told that there are too many games. You know, we're playing 36 in the league. We've already played, what, four in the League Cup. That's 40. We're going to get another six here, 46. Any kind of run in the Scottish Cup or a playoff and you're up to 50 right away. It's absolutely bonkers, to be honest. But again, it's an SPFL trophy. There are points to be won, or there's money to be won. So Alloa at Stair Park on Tuesday night, 7:45 kickoff. So guys, get yourself out there. The Pavilion Bar continues to do well before the game, so get yourself out an hour or so before kickoff and get a wee juice there before you head into the game. And it is one thing. It is always exciting, Brian, is to see a game under the lights.
Yeah, it's a kind of beat Stair Park or the Ickageni, what it's called, under the lights, and a game under the lights. Maybe a wee bit early, right? You know, maybe a good winter's night, Lawrence. It's probably better, but it's a good. It's always a good spectacle under the lights at Stair Park.
Well, just a wee reminder, we've got Alloa at home. We've then got Rangers B at home, 26th of August. Kelty Hearts are only away game. That'll be a tough one. Saturday the 6th of September. Motherwell B at home, 23rd of September. Queen of the South at home, 11th of October. and St Mirren be at home. That'll be a winter's one, Brian. Tuesday, the 11th of November. You'll be thinking about Santa coming by that stage.
That'll be quite a. They seen the kids with St Mirren, didn't they, to play the Blues in a November's night. God knows the crowd will get for that one. Hopefully it'll be no bad night.
You'll be starting with your poetry on a cruel winter's night that was so deep. We'll get Brian Martin with the Christmas carols and the run up to it. Guys, anything else before we put this one to bed? Edinburgh City to look forward to on Saturday. In that case, folks, thank you very much for watching or listening if you've got to this stage of Luke Blues Talking. Edinburgh City at Stair Park on Saturday, 3 o'clock. Get yourself along there. Get yourself into the Pavilion Bar from 1 o'clock onwards. And thanks for listening and watching.